So this little chapter, and we'll read it, and then I want to go to Obadiah, because thou hast had a perpetual enmity. This has gone on since Esau, and hast given over the children of Israel to the power of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time of the iniquity of the end. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Jehovah, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee, and since thou hast not hated blood, therefore blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir an astonishment, a desolation. I will cut off from it him that passes through, and him that returns. So there's not going to be any reason to go through here. This is going to be so wiped out, desolate, that there's really no reason to go through there anymore. Nothing there for the sojourner. Nothing there. There's no tourist attraction here, None here. And I will fill its mountains with its slain, and thy hills and in thy valleys, and all thy watercourses shall they fall that are slain with the sword. So this is going to be total devastation. This is a wipeout of a nation. It's what this is. I will make thee a perpetual desolation, and thy cities shall not be inhabited, and ye shall know that I am Jehovah. Today over there in that part of the world, there's nothing but remains of some building. There's a beautiful carved thing into the cliff wall, but idolatry is the reason it's there. And there is nothing but red sand, blowing tumbleweeds, and nothing out there. Nothing. Clarence tells me, flying over that in Apache helicopters, when he was over there training Israeli Apache pilots, he said the only thing you can see in that whole vast, desolate desert arena, he says, is a few water holes. And that's it. And some rubble. He said, that's it. That's all you can see. So I've seen it through his eyes, and I've seen it through biblical eyes, and so I know it is desolate. Nothing over there. A few camels go through there, and that's about it. And thy city shall not be inhabited, and you shall know that I am Jehovah. You're going to know, everybody's going to know God did this, because thou hast said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it, whereas Jehovah was there. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord Jehovah, I will do according to thine anger, and according to thine envy, which thou hast showed out of thy hatred against them. I will make myself known among them when I shall judge thee, and thou shalt know that I, Jehovah, have heard all of thy revilings, which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate, they are given us to devour. So we're going to go in there. Nebuchadnezzar goes in there and destroys the army. Okay? So there is no perimeter defense in the nation, because Nebuchadnezzar has wiped it out. And so that makes then the inhabitants, those that are left in the land, that makes them easy prey for an invasion, because they are weakened. There is no, if you will, there is no army. There is no police force. There's nothing but, and all the young men have been carried off. So there's the very young, there's the aged, the widows, and the orphans. It's all that's left in these two places. One of them is Israel, the other is Judea, okay, or Judah. And so there's nothing left there to resist an invasion of lowlife, okay? Same thing happened when God destroyed Pharaoh's army. It was the Amalekites that went down and laid utter ruin to the cities of Egypt, because there was no standing army. Pharaoh and the army of Egypt were being destroyed where? Red Sea. Okay. So this is the situation here. And thou shalt know, verse 12, that I, Jehovah, have heard all thy revilings. See, God listens. Verse 13, and you have magnified yourselves against me with your mouth, and have multiplied your words against me. I've heard it. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah, when the whole earth rejoice, I will make thee desolate. And as thou didst rejoice over the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate or destroyed, so will I do unto thee. Thou shalt be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all of Eden, even all of it, every bit of it. This is a total wipeout, and they shall know that I am Jehovah. So God evens the scales. All right, now let's go to the minor prophet, Obadiah. Okay? Obadiah, a little one-page book in your Bible. And in this book is that complete story of the wipeout. Okay, it's right after the book of Amos. Now, this is the retaliation of God because somebody said, "Ha ha ha ha! Look what happened to you." Look at you, huh? You thought you were so fine, and now look what's happened to you. And not only that, they're invading to loot. It's like when a hurricane comes through one of our cities of the coast. The first thing we have to do after the immediate passage of the storm is what? Protect the property. If a tornado comes through, like that tornado that hit Missouri several years ago, or Joplin, Missouri, and wiped that whole corner of Joplin, Missouri off the map, the immediate problem they had was looters. A tornado might hit your home and make rubble of it and pass on, but there are generally some things in there that you would like to redeem. You know what I mean? You would like to try to put back a part of your life. And there may be some things still usable. You may not have to buy a new toaster. You know what I mean? There may be one that's still usable. Well, when people come in and loot, it is disrespectful toward those that have suffered a terrible disaster, and it is against everything God has taught us in humanity. Instead of going in there looting, we should respond with some kind of disaster relief, you see. Well, here's Obadiah. It'll say it. We're just going to read this morning. Just let the Bible speak. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah concerning Edom. Now that's Esau. You have the Israel, that's all of the descendants of Jacob. And you have Esau the brother. And after their parting the last time, then Esau became a great population or country within himself, the descendants of Esau. And so now you have them border to border. Thus saith the Lord Jehovah concerning Edom. We have heard tidings from Jehovah, and an ambassador sent among the nations, saying, Arise ye, let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I've made thee small among the nations, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thy heart has deceived thee, O thou that dwellest in the cliffs of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou mount on high as the eagle, and though thy nest be set among the stars, I will bring thee down from thence, saith Jehovah. So all of that fortified mountain defense that Edom had enjoyed, armies invading, they had to go through these little narrow passes, these choke points. And anyone invading Edom, they just couldn't do it because of such a strategic location, and you always take the high ground. You know that. You've watched enough World War II movies to know that you take the high ground. Because strategically, the high ground is of great advantage. Okay? And that's why we have battles like 861, like 881 South, 881 North, 689, Hill 55. All of those hill battles. You take the high ground. All right? They have enjoyed the high, exalted peaks in that region. And armies found it too costly to invade, and so they've generally left them alone because of the terrain features. If thieves came into thee, if robbers by night, and then he says, oh, you're cut off. Would they not steal only till they had enough? If grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some gleaning grapes? Now, he's talking about looting. What they've done, we're going to see it a little later. But there's not going to be anything left on the grapevine. It's just total wipeout. Nothing. Years ago in the cotton world where I grew up, you went through the field and picked cotton. If you had trash in your sack, they took, money off if they dumped that trash in a cotton trailer and it had trash in it, oh man, they would dock your pay for trash in the cotton. So the first time through the field, everybody picked. And then the second time through, you pulled everything. I mean, it didn't matter. Leaves, bowls, stalks. I mean, you just stripped it all. It's called stripping, not picking. Stripping. Okay? And there wasn't any, you didn't leave a green bowl or nothing. And that's the idea. You got everything good out of that cotton field you could get. And that's what this is. That's what this is about Eden. How are the things of Esau? There you are. There's the brother. Searched. How are his hidden treasures sought out? I mean, they're going to take it all. And the men of thy confederacy have brought thee on thy way, even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread lay a snare unto you. So the confederacy's falling apart. They're going to prove the instruments for this total wipeout. Okay? Shall I not in that day, saith Jehovah, destroy the wise men out of Eden, and the understanding out of Mount Esau? You take that out of a nation and it falls, it crumbles. Without leadership, it cannot exist. You have to have leadership, or the population is just, then you have mob rule. And the mob's very easy to destroy. Very easy to destroy. No leadership, no direction. It's every man for himself. And that's easy to destroy. And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end. They're talking about their army, the mighty men, that every one may be cut off from the mount of Esau by slaughter. So this is a military invasion. It is the hand of God. And everything that breathes is going to be destroyed. Everything. Why? Why, Lord? Why? For the violence done to thy brother Jacob. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that strangers carried away his substance, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was asked, did you do this, Edom? No. But what did you do? You stood and watched. Yeah. We have laws in America today, and I remember when Idaho passed the Good Samaritan law, there was a flaming car wreck on Highway 26, and there were three men that risked their lives. They ran into those flames, and they got the husband out of the car. They got the children out of the car, and they ran back to get the woman, and they grabbed her. And one of the men trying to help was badly burned in that. And they got her. They got her around under the armpits, and they pulled, and her foot was hung under some of the bent metal in the seat. And they pulled so hard because of the heat and adrenaline that they pulled up her hip joint, if you will, or leg away from the bottom of the spine. But they dragged her out of there, and the car exploded, you know, and all of that. And she got transported by ambulance, and they had, you know, burns and everything you could imagine. It was horrible. And the three guys that were assisting them before the ambulance came and the fire truck and all that, then they were, of course, touted as heroes, and it was in the paper and the Arco Advertiser and in the Idaho Falls paper that these men, you know, were heroes. And about 6 months later, it hit the paper that they were being sued by this family because they had injured her in getting her out of that wreck. They had crippled her, if you will, because they had pulled so hard to get her untangled from that mashed metal and stuff that they had unhinged her spine, if you will. So she was going to be permanently disabled in some fashion. I don't remember the details. And so they sued these three guys. You know, you can always find lawyers for that kind of thing. And they sued those three men. And when it got to the Idaho State Court, Supreme Court, I don't remember all the details, but they didn't throw the suit down. They knocked it down to, I don't know, she was suing them for, you know, something $1 million. And they knocked it down to well down into a couple $100,000 and finally said that's all you get because they did save your life. And on the ballot was a proposition after that, and we passed a new law. And you know what it was called? The Good Samaritan Law in Idaho. Anyone acting in good faith and trying to help somebody, they would not be held accountable for damages if they were trying to save someone from harm or from death. Now that they could have left that woman in the car, and right after they got her out of it, it exploded and burnt to you know. And what they did because of their work was save that family from a funeral and grief and all of that, and not having the jaws of life and things of that nature. But the jaws of life arrived, if I understood the accident scene, the jaws of life arrived there with the fire truck about 15 minutes later, you know, and all they would have gotten out of that car would have been a charred body. So there was a Good Samaritan law enacted, and several states have that. Not all of the states have that. And that's why people are hesitant to help in times of something like that, because, you know, you can get sued from trying to help. Well, what you have here is that neutrality. I'm not going to, the Bible never, let me say it again. The Bible never, ever okays neutrality. It is never wrong. It is, it is never right to do nothing. There's a principle that someone recorded that evil abounds when good men do nothing. And that's not biblical statement, but the principle is there, that there is no defense for doing nothing. For doing nothing. So, you know, you have to respond for doing nothing. Judy Ann and I remember when Brother Irvin passed, and his wife called, and we went over there, and he was lying, of course, deceased. But I still had my first responder card in my wallet, and it was still in effect. It finally expired, but it was still in effect from when I was a federal law enforcement officer. And by law, I was required to do something. And so Judy Ann and I began, resuscitation procedures. And they ambulance loaded him up, and they took him, and they had to do all the way to Crofton. And someone later, I don't know why you just didn't leave him alone. I don't know why you'd start that. Well, I was compelled by oath and by law, because I carried that card in my pocket that I was a first responder, and I was obligated to try. Because if you do nothing under federal law as a federal law enforcement officer, and if you do nothing, you are liable by under federal statute. So I had to do something. And so here's the problem here. In the day you stood and did nothing, in that day strangers carried away his substance, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, and you was just like one of, did you do it? No. But what did you do? You just stood there and looked. Okay? But look not thou on the day of thy brother in the day of his disaster, and rejoice not over the children of Israel in the day of their destruction. You never laugh at somebody having troubles. Don't do it. Yeah, got just what they deserve. They got just what was coming to them. Don't do that. Don't do that, brethren. That's unchristian. Okay? That's unchristian. Neither speak proudly in the day of their distress. So don't allow yourself to think it, and don't speak it. And don't speak it. Don't you do that. Enter not into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, look not thou on their affliction in the day of their calamity, neither lay ye hands on their substance in the day of their calamity, and stand thou not in the crossway to cut off those that escape. Don't you hem them up, and don't you catch them and hold them for the force that are pursuing them. Don't you do that. Don't you do it. One of the things that made Hitler's work so easy was that the nations around him were too ready to catch those that were trying to flee the power of Nazi Germany and hold them till the Nazis got there. That was one of the things that was so horrible about that they would sell out their friends and sell out their neighbors. Those that farmed outside of the immediate German area. There's several books that you can read about how the neighbors would say, "Oh, I know where there's a family of dissidents or Jews." You didn't have to be a Jew to go to the concentration camps. All you had to say is, that Hitler's a nut, or something like that, and your friends would rat you out. They had become a nation of snitches. Nation of snitches. Huh? Yeah, families, darling. See, and the Bible says right here, you don't do that. You don't do that. You don't cause them unnecessary grief and them trying to get away. You don't stand in the, like you'd stand a bunch of cows trying to get out. You don't do that. And you don't deliver up of his that remain in the day of distress. Oh, here's one over here. Hey, 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 you missed one. There he is over there. There he is. You see him hiding over there under the haystack? You know, you don't do that. And then say, oh, I didn't do anything. I didn't hurt him. They went and got him out from under the haystack. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. For the day of Jehovah is near upon all the nations. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thy dealing shall be returned upon thine own head. For as you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the nations drink continually. Yea, they shall drink and swallow down, and shall be as though they had not been. I mean, that God's going to swallow them up. Just like you drink a glass of water till it's empty and it's gone. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And then the rest of this has to do with the dual image of those that escape. The remnant will escape. And also there's some messianic. He says, but in Mount Zion there shall be those that escape. There's God's remnant. And it shall be holy, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. Okay, so this is Edom. It's going to be burned up. And they shall burn among them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining to the house of Esau, for Jehovah has spoken it. You cannot find today in that part of the world, that's southern Jordan, and that's eastern Saudi Arabia. And there's nothing out there but miles and miles of a type of plant like bitterbrush. There's nothing out there that can support a cow. Nothing. There's goats on the ridges. In the mountains there, look, if you've ever been up through, Bob, what's the name of that? Is that Sinclair, Oklahoma, or Sydney, Oklahoma? Which is that? You go up 183 to hit 62 right up there. Doyle, help us out. You run old Blue up through there. What is that town there where them Wichita Mountains are right up there in Oklahoma up here? What's the name of that little town? Sinclair or Sydney? I think it may be Sydney. Anyway, there's nothing there on those. They call them mountains, and the people that call them mountains never been, further west. But they're just rocks. There's nothing up there. You couldn't live up there 2 days unless you packed your water in a peanut butter sandwich. There's nothing up there. Well, that's the way Esau's land was after the destruction here. Now, do you see the picture? You see what they were doing? Let's go back to Ezekiel because that's what we're studying. But that gives you a parallel from, if you will, the prophet on scene. Ezekiel's prophesying this, but he's way over in the land of Babylon, see? But Obadiah is not. He's the anchor man, you might say. And so you go back and look at chapter 35 again. Verse 8, I will fill its mountains with its slain, and thy hills and thy valleys and all thy watercourses shall they fall that are slain with the sword. I will make thee a perpetual desolation, and thy cities shall not be inhabited, and ye shall know that I am Jehovah. Because thou hast said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and will possess it. They let Nebuchadnezzar walk over, completely destroy the northern kingdom, and now he's taken all the good out of the southern kingdom, Judah, and then Edom says, all of those looters and all of those Nabateans, nomads, all of the, tribal, they're going in there and they're pillaging and catching them and selling them into slavery and doing all that kind of stuff, taking advantage, and they're not helping the survivors. They're not helping at all. God's going to get through. Verse 12, he responds to blasphemy, and thou shalt know that I am Jehovah. Thou shalt know that I, Jehovah, have heard thy revilings which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate, they're given us to devour. They're giving us to devour. We can take them now because there's nothing to stop us. And the purpose was looting. and selling them into the survivors, selling them into slavery. What was left? The widows, the orphans, and the old people. So they were gathering up the widows and the children and selling them and the old people. They were leaving them to starve, taking the food from the storage places and leaving the old people to starve. Well, we didn't do that. No, you didn't actually do it, but you stood there and allowed it to happen. Edom was strong. They had enough mighty men that they could have kept the looting at least to a minimum. But they didn't respond. They didn't respond. Ha, you got what was coming to you. Yes, they did get what was coming to them, but it's never right for godly-minded people to say, ha, you got what was coming to you. It's never right to do that. Why? It's called compassion. It's called compassion. It's called love for humanity. Love thy neighbor as thyself. You wouldn't want that to happen to you? No. Well, then you don't laugh at calamity that falls upon somebody else. You just don't do that. And you don't stand and just watch. You help where you can. You get in there and pitch if you can. Is there any question on this chapter? You see how Obadiah he's the man on the scene, and Ezekiel is over prophesying this hundreds and hundreds of miles away in Babylon captivity, and Obadiah is the prophet on the scene. Yeah.
You notice how today every time they have some kind of robbery or some kind of fight or some kind of, it's always video. Somebody's always standing around video.
Yeah.
What? If I didn't misunderstand reading the church this one, it said it's against the law to if video in the post office. And if the post office gets robbed and you videoed it, then the law would come get you.
Come get you for breaking the ordinance. Yeah. 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 Things get turned on their heads, don't they? And yeah. I hope we have an untwisting. I think it started earlier, a day or two ago, untwisting some of this mess, and I don't know that it'll be successful. You know, when an apple gets rotten all the way to the core, it's hard. It's hard to core the apple and still have anything left, darling. Uh-huh. Oh, excellent, darling. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you know to do it and you don't, to you it becomes sin. There's never a place I've ever read in the Bible anywhere where it's all right to stand and do nothing. Just watch. There's never a place. You can't find it in your book. Can't do it. Between the leather covers of this book, you cannot find it. God wants us to do something. What's within your might, do it. You know, there's some things you cannot do, like those three guys in Idaho trying to save that woman out of that wrecked car. They did save her, but they could not possibly foresee the fact that in that pulling and their desperation from the heat of those flames, and one of them got burned pretty bad from the flames as he had her trying to tear her loose from that wreckage. And you know, adrenaline must have been running 100% in his body. But to have that kind of strength to pull her out of there and pull that leg out of that twisted metal and all of that, you know, and he didn't stand there and say, well, I couldn't help it was too hot, you know. Yeah, they should have gone out and shoveled snow all day. Yeah, but anyway, that was the thing that proposition passed. Boom! I mean, one of the easiest things that ever went and became law in the state of Idaho in the years and years we were up there. I mean, you know, to prosecute somebody for trying to help, and sure they did some damage. There's no doubt about it. But the life was worth saving. And there's some principles there at work. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for your help in our study. These principles we're looking at, they have very real and practical application. They really do.